Guardians of the Galaxy. That movie. It was supposed to actually show the Guardians of the Galaxy theme, and I guess I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I didn't clarify that, but that's okay because that's from Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's one of my favorite movies. If you don't know that, and why is it one of my favorite movies? Because it's basically Star Wars and Marvel had a baby, which isn't really that hard considering Disney owns both of them now. But still, if you haven't seen this movie, it's so freaking good. Okay, you just need to know that. If you haven't seen it, go watch it tonight. But what you need to know about this movie is that the next greatest thing about the movie, I shouldn't have stepped on whatever I stepped on. That's okay. What you also need to know about the movie is that in the movie, Peter Quill, that's the character, Chris Pratt, good-looking guy. He has his tape thing, and then he presses play, and then it starts playing the music. And it's like in the movie, the music is actually another character. Okay, it is part of his life. It is in so many scenes. It's not just like this orchestral or space. You know, it's not like that. It's like there's all this music from the 70s and the 80s, and you're like, all right, yeah, let's do this. And it just gets pumped and awesome. Before I go any further, let me say my name is Chris. If this is your first, second, third, 1 billionth time, anywhere in between, you are welcome here. It doesn't matter what you believe, what you're thinking right now. If you think you're weird, whatever, you're welcome here. You are welcome in this place. But let's continue talking about music for a second. Why do I mention this? I'm not on the worship team. I have no musical talents. So why am I talking about the soundtrack of a movie, of my favorite movie? Because music is one of the most powerful things in all of creation. Someone said true, and I'm amen. It's one of the most powerful things in all of creation. It is both instructive and effective. It helps us with thought, but it also helps us with feelings. And so it helps us with thinking things because rhythm and rhyme help us remember. So we all know A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Why? Because when you were little, you sung it. And so every time you ever need to organize something, I don't know about you guys, but every time you're how does it go? It's that, okay. I always do that. I used to work in a bookstore, and I always had to sing out the entire, even if it was Y, I always had to go the entire way and just make sure. And so it helps us remember things. It helps us process stuff. And look, I don't know any passwords of mine. I have to always go through every single one on any account. I don't remember birthdays of significant people in my life. If there's a recipe that I have made 1,000 times at home, I still have to look up the exact measurements every time. So it's like, okay, so I had this much olive oil, and then how much salt? A gallon? Okay, great. I always have to check, or I'm going to ruin everything. But I can just be having a casual day. Just driving around with my wife, Hannah, and I can know that, I can always remember that Taylor Swift never misses a beat, that she's lightning on her feet. And that's what they don't see. That's what they don't see. That she's dancing on her own, making the moves up as she goes. And that's what they don't know. That's what they don't know. But she'll keep cruising. Can't stop, won't stop grooving, right? It's like she's got music playing in her mind, saying it's gonna be alright. Because the player's gonna and the hater's gonna. Now I'm just gonna shake it off. Okay, just a little bit. I give you a little bit, and then I take it right back. And take it right back. You guys can't have any more. But seriously, you're thinking I don't even want to know that about Taylor Swift, but you do, because she made it catchy, and it gets freaking lodged in there. And you're like, I don't want to remember Shake It Off, but now you did this to me. Okay, so it's not just effective for getting us to remember things like lyrics, but it also helps stir our emotions. So some of you, all you need to hear is this.
Why?
And you're already thinking,
Why?
just a small town girl, living in a lonely world. And you're already getting pumped. You're already yeah, I'm about to tear this up. You're all knowing. It's getting to the chorus, and you're just freaking and you're I can't even play guitar, but I know it. I know it. And so you're all getting jazzed in this moment right now, okay? And so here's the thing. It doesn't just motivate our emotions. It doesn't just stir it up. But sometimes it helps us process through emotions as well. That that, I don't know, maybe you had a hard day at school. Maybe a friend betrayed you. Maybe you just failed a test, or you looked like an idiot at practice, or you just experienced a hard breakup. And what do? You go home, you curl up in a ball, and you put on Adele, and you set fire to the rain, right? Why do I do that? Why do you do that? Because sometimes just speaking about our emotions in our day isn't enough. We have to sing it. We have to get passionate about it, right? And so why do I mention all this? Because music is the most natural medium for which humans express some of the most deep thoughts and feelings that they can have. And so I think it's no mistake that your Bible, the Bible, has almost a third of it completely devoted to poetries and songs. Because I think God knew that none of us just think about our life. We feel about our life. That none of us just go into circumstances and just think, well, I just need to process through this logically and it'll all be... No, you generate emotions about it, you know? Nor were we made to just think about God. We need to feel about God. And so he gives us the book of Psalm, which really means the book of melody and the book of song, because he knows that his word needed to be set to rhythm and rhyme so that we could all learn it, process it, and work through some of the deepest emotions in us that just simply can't be thought through or talked about or felt. They need to be passionately sung or spoken about. And so it's not just enough to have emotions. In order for us to grow, we need to identify these deep places in us. And we identify these deep places in us when we're given words and songs and other things that help us be like, oh, that's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm thinking. And so I don't know about you, I think that God gave us this book so that we can have personal moments with it, get identity behind it, and identify the deep places in us so that we can have identity, so that we can know what it is inside of us that we're feeling. And I kind of feel like it's also like Peter Quill from Guardians of the Galaxy again, that, he has his songs. And they're really identifying to me. And some of you are like, I still haven't seen the movie. Watch this clip.
That's going to wear real thin, real fast. Hey, put that away. Hey, listen to me, you big blue bastard. Take those headphones off. That's mine. Those belong to Impound, that tape, and that player is mine. What I'm feeling? Blue Swede, 1973, that song belongs to me.
Freaking love that song. But did you hear what he said? He said, hooked on a feeling, Blue Swede, 1970. What did he say? Three. Thank you. I almost said 6. I guess I did math in my head. But he says that song belongs to me. And I feel like there are parts in my life where there are these psalms and these songs that I've read, and in these moments of life have belonged to me. That in Peter Quill's life, what has happened is that he got kidnapped as a kid after his mom died in front of him, and then he goes off and he has to deal with aliens all of a sudden. And so he has this one heirloom, the soundtrack that has helped him walk through his life and process these emotions. And I feel like God is doing that with our lives, that he's given us these words from all these people to help us send our thoughts to him, to help us process through these things. And so tonight, I want to briefly walk you guys through a psalm in my life that just continually comes up, hard moment after hard moment, grief after grief, just all these emotions I feel. It always is the one that either pops into my head, or I go back to it, or I listen to a song that's been written about it, and you're just like, no, I don't want to hear it right now. I don't want to hear it right now. God, stop it. Stop. And you're like, no, okay, fine. And so if you have a Bible, open up to Psalm 42, verses 1 and 2. We're going to start there. I'm not going to read the entire thing. I'm just going to read the first 5 verses because they break up really easy, and they're good. So if you don't have a Bible, it's going to be on the screen. It says this, starting in verse 1. It says, as the deer longs for streams of water, so I long for you, O God. I thirst for God, the living God. When can I go and stand before him? And see, I don't know about you guys, but when I first read that, it just kind of throws me off because I told you guys this moment is like this psalm I go to when I have like grief and sadness and all these things, and then it just starts talking about deer thirsting for water. And it's just weird to me because one, I'm not a deer. And two, because I've never seen in my life of living in Colorado, seen a deer just burst out of like the brush, dripping sweat from its sweatbands and its unitard. And it's just like on the ground like it ran a 5K and it's like, water. Wow. I've never seen that. So I don't know what it's like for a deer to thirst for streams of water. So I get really confused and I'm like, what is he trying to say here? Because the title of the psalm, if you look in some Bibles, is about the soul of the downcast and how our soul gets dreary and upset and depressed. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm in those moods, whenever I'm feeling upset, dreary, sad, downcast, the last thing I do is just like go and be thirsty for God like a deer or anything. When my emotions are just really upset and I'm sad and I'm angry, I usually am mad at God and be like, dude, why this? Like, why this situation? Why is this happening to me? Why this circumstance? And I experienced this kind of emotion, this kind of moment this past Friday. I took my wife Hannah to the airport, okay? And so it's like 4 a.m. that we're driving up to DIA, and we get there. I think I heard someone say that, but it's gross. And we get there, we check her bags, and we're like having a good time and stuff, and then we get to TSA. And the lines are like back to infinity, and they're full of old people and just moms with all 52 of their snotty children, and you're just like, come on, people. And so I'm like, you got to get down there. We get her in the line. I check my phone. I'm like, we are getting this close. And so I'm like up on the balcony trying to like navigate her and be like, no, jump in that line, do this. And then as soon as she gets through, she like looks at me to say, I love you, bye. And I'm like, just run. And so she goes. And I remember I'm on the balcony. And I walk away from that moment and I'm just like, God, just please allow her to get to her gate because she's going down to Texas so that she can be with her family because her sister is buying a dress that day for her wedding this summer. And so Hannah wanted to be there. I'm like, God, just please let her be there. Like, that would suck if she couldn't be there. And so I'm walking back to my car. I get in. All the while I have this knot in my stomach. And I just start driving. And the sun's coming up behind me. And I can see the mountains. And then I get a phone call. And I already know. I'm like, she wouldn't call me if she made it on the flight. She would just text me, made it on the flight, good. And so I pick up the phone, and my heart just drops, my stomach drops. Everything just gets sad and angry all at once as I hear my wife, like, crying because she couldn't make it on the flight. And not only did she not make it on the flight, the freaking plane was still there, you know? Like that moment of you get there, and it's like, hey, we can't let you on. It's like, oh, no. Excuse you. I know what you're thinking. I'm getting on the plane. And then they label you a terrorist kind of thing. That's what happened. And I was so mad that I was on the phone with her and I'm just trying to talk through like, okay, we're going to get you on another flight. You're still going to get there. And all the while, I just wanted to scream. And I wanted to like hit something, not another car, just something in my car within it, like punch, I don't know, the steering wheel. And that's probably dangerous as well, but you know what I'm saying. And so I'm just furious. And in that moment, the last thing I do is just think, God, I thirst for you. That's not me. I'm like, no, I'm freaking pissed off. And so what do we do in this moment? Because I think if we read it just like that, we're like, this seems so foreign. This seems completely unrelatable, so strange. What am I supposed to do with this? Because what I think you need to understand is that the psalmist here is not yet processed through the entire emotion. That what he's saying here is he's saying, look, I long for that. I want that. I want to be in a place where I thirst for God or thirst for anything good because I remember there used to be something like that. I want something better than the moment I'm in right now. And so how do we get back to a place of not just looking for something better? Because I think we all sit in that we move from angry, sad moment to angry, sad moment. And we just want to get back to, was it always this way? And so finally we get the psalmist who actually begins to talk about what's happening here, why he's downcast. And he says this, Day and night, I have only tears for food. While my enemies continually taunt me, saying, where is this God of yours? My heart is breaking as I remember how it used to be. I walked among the crowd of worshipers, leading the great procession of the house of God, singing for joy and giving thanks amid the sound of the great celebration. And those opening words, you know how I was talking about how there's just psalms that speak to that deep place in me that I really identify with? It's those first words of day and night, I have only tears for food. That it's like all I have is my emotions, that I'm feasting and gorging myself with this depression, with this anger, with this sadness, and that's all I can think about. That any other thought, any other activity in my free time seems unfeasible. So what do? Because also in that moment, whether audibly or internally, there seems to be these voices just berating us, taunting us, reminding us, hey, where's your God? I mean, he wouldn't have allowed for this, right? Why'd you do that? Why'd you go there? No one would like you if they found out. You're unclean. You're dirty. You're not beautiful. You're a mess. And it's like it's on repeat day and night, that as soon as the song ends in our life, it's like, oh, there's the opening chorus again. And we don't know what to do. And then it goes on and it says, I remember how it used to be. I mean, my life didn't always be this way. You know, back before I did or didn't do that, before I said or saw those things, wasn't there joy in my life at some point? I mean, maybe back when I was with my friends, before there was trouble in my world, but instead we often live in this world of back thens and if-onlys. And I remember for me, I had this moment in high school that, I mean, when I feel like I'm telling the story, it just sounds stupid because it's not like this huge trauma, but I remember this moment that haunted me as a back then, as an if-only for a long time in my life. And it was like freshman year or sophomore year or something like that I had this group of friends at my church that I was growing up in. And in this group of friends, they were the first people I like really divulged secrets to and like really got close to, and I was like, you guys are awesome. I really like you people. And like we grew up together. We had been in the same grade for like all of time, and like we went to classes together and we went to trips together and everything we just did as a group. And then I remember freshman, sophomore year, something like that, one of the girls in the group, we hadn't seen her in a while. And then we find out that she's dating some dude. I don't even remember his name that much. But we, like, sometimes I forget it. Like now. That's how little he meant to me. But she started dating this guy. Gosh, what is my problem? She started dating him, and it was this guy that we're like, he's kind of a bro. We don't really like him, and he's older than us, and he's kind of a chotch. I don't know. And so we just didn't like him. And so I remember one day, one of our friends in the group, went over and talked to her and started having this conversation with Livy. That was her name. And somehow, I don't even know the story, but eventually it just broke into this huge fight. And then the friend group began to split, and then other people would pick sides. Some people were just like, I'm just going to stay out of it. And then everything just fell apart. And then a few weeks later, I remember, I don't know if it was me or Livy who texted who, but me and Livy were talking, and we were having a conversation on the phone, and we were texting back and forth. Yeah, on the text. I know you guys are laughing. Shut up. Shut your freaking mouth. All right.
Terrible throw.
How rude. Actually goes back into the story. It's weird. And so we're having this conversation on our phones, and we're just talking for like a good 3 hours of the day, you know, when you do in high school. And so I'm just texting her, and then finally it gets to the point where there's like a lull in the conversation. All right, okay. Where was I? Okay. So there was a lull in the conversation. Everyone, focus. Okay. I'm going to wait for you guys to laugh it off. Okay, and so there was a lull in the conversation, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I texted something along the lines of like, hey, how are you? and your boyfriend like doing with God? Like, I haven't seen you at church recently. Are you guys like studying anything together? Like, how's that going? And I was just honestly just trying to keep the conversation going because we were already talking for a long time, and I was like, why not just keep it going? And Livy's response was not what I expected. She snapped at me and said, how dare you ask that question and judge me and my boyfriend? And just like, she's like, you're like everybody else. And then she just started berating me in this like long list of things that I had done against her. And like that, I was just like, whoa, I just asked a question. What's going on? At least that's what I thought. But that's not what I replied. And I don't remember the exact words of what I said, but I know it was quick. It wasn't a long thing. And it was something along the lines of, you know what? Forget you. And from that moment on, throughout the rest of my high school career and much of my early college, I just constantly had this thought. Because after that moment, I never talked to Livy again. And I just constantly asked myself, man, if I had done something different, would that friend group have somehow come back together? I mean, if only I responded calmly and collective and not quick and snappy and mean and rude. If only I did that. What if I said those words? How would that have affected the situation? And it just kept playing through my mind almost every single week through the rest of high school, because I kept looking for deep friendships like that, and I just couldn't find it again because that entire thing just exploded. And we begin to do that. We begin to sit in this place asking, if I only did that differently. If only I didn't say that thing, go to that place, talk to that person, enter that room. Whatever it is, name your list. You know you all have it. And we all sit there at times and we ask ourselves, and we're in this cycle that continually plays, if only, back then, what if? And so what do we do? Seriously, what do we do? Because sometimes I am in loss for an answer for that. And I think the psalmist here, the guy who's writing this, begins to process that for us. And he says this. He says, why am I discouraged? Why is my heart so sad? I will put my hope in God. I will praise him again, my Savior and my God. And so here's what I think is happening, is that the text itself begins to challenge this mood of being in sadness and anger and all these things, begins to process through this motion, and it begins to ask, why am I discouraged? Why am I sad? Like, really? And it's not just asking this like, why am I sad? Like, it's not a solemn place of sulking and just being depressing. It's literally asking that. And I think that's the first thing to changing our life, is really giving identity to our emotions, to the its of our life, to the back thens and if onlys. What moments are making my heart sad? Because it's not this solemn thing that I was talking about, just like, I'm sad, why am I this way? It's not that. It's literally asking, seriously, hey heart, why are you sad? Why are you downcast? Why are you discouraged? Seriously, I want to know. Is this good for you? Is this beneficial? Is this your nutrition now? Is my tears? That we're just going to feast on that and my emotions for the rest of my life? Because you're taking residence in me. And I want an answer. And so here's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to raise a petition against our heart. We're supposed to ask it questions that when these emotions grip our lives, we call back and we fight and we get real. In the book of James, later in the Bible, it says this: when our heart condemns us. Like, our heart is literally coming against us and calling out these emotions. And when, in that moment, what do? Whenever you feel unworthy, dirty, useless, like a disappointment, that's your heart. And I'm not trying to say that your heart is inherently bad, but I'm saying that there's things in our life that just hit us and then seep down into the places within us. That begins to cover our heart. It begins to gunk up the gears of our life. And so we just feel this. That it's one thing to have an emotion, just be like, I'm kind of sad today. And let's be like, but maybe I've always been sad, or maybe I am a disappointment. It's one thing to have a thought of, man, I didn't do good today and I'm not good at that, or I'm not smart, but maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I'm not good at anything. And it's one thing to hear words from other people outside of us and who are saying things like, you're not smart, you're not beautiful, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're so weird, you're so strange, no one can ever like you. But it's one thing to hear those, but they tend to seep into our life and call out against us and remind us of the things that we're not. But they call out against us anyways and tell us that there's nothing good for you. They become this lens of truth through which we see. And yet none of us want that. None of us want to live in a place of hopelessness and despair. So what are you meant to do? You're meant to fight back. That when your heart comes out against you, you're meant to fight back against your heart. And call it out and ask it questions and be like, seriously, why is this happening right now? Because here's the thing I need you to know. Like, my story, my life is not full of trauma and mess and all these things. And I don't think it's necessarily trauma and mess that really ruins us. I think it's the little things. And hear me, I'm not trying to belittle your trauma. If you have huge moments in your life that are just gripping you, you can just take it off in one time. Okay. You got it. It's not those big things. I think those big things allow for more little things to seep down into our hearts, into our lives, but they begin to sit in us, and they call out against us, and they ruin our moments, our lives. They bring us despair. And so what are we meant to do? Yeah, you're meant to fight back. But you're not meant to fight back alone. Because James says, when my heart condemns me, God is greater than my heart. And so when you're in battle against your heart, you're not meant to fight alone. Give the battle with your emotions to God. Because these things are going to tell you that your story is too messy for God to even care about, or it's too small for God to even care about. But here's the thing. God cares about you. He wants to be with you. He wants to love you. He wants to care about every little thing about you. So whenever you feel unworthy, like you're not good enough, like you're dirty or you're unclean, when you give that over to a God who loves you, the volume of those things is going to go way down. As a louder voice comes up behind you and says, I love you. I love your story. You're not unclean. You're not unworthy. I sent my son for you because I love you. But you have to make the choice. Are you going to fight? Or are you just going to give in? Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for today. We thank you for allowing us to just be here and come into this moment, God. God, if there's any negative emotions or feelings that are just gripping any of our hearts tonight, God, we just give it